All right, good evening, everybody. JT Siskowski for Status Coup. I'm live here in the back of a truck in Minneapolis. This is not normally where we go live, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes taste as to what goes into covering an authoritarian immigration crackdown and occupation of various American cities. Not a sentence I thought I'd be saying even, a year ago today, but here we are. So this is how, when we get all that video that you might see us put out on social media or in our YouTube videos that we're showing you of how ICE agents, Border Patrol agents are conducting themselves in all of these cities around the country. The way that we're getting this video is what you're seeing right now, which is us driving around for hours and hours, and we are out looking for really following up on community reports of where ICE is in a moment. So we're looking at a whole bunch of different channels to try and find where they're at any one moment. And that could include signal chats. Those have been a very popular option in these communities as a way to securely communicate among neighbors about where ICE is, trying to follow up on leads, trying to confirm various license plates on cars. Are these federal? Are these not? Are these clear vehicles? How concerned do people need to be about ICE in their community? There's also discussions happening on Facebook groups. There are the apps like Red Dot that people have used to report ICE activity as well. But we are trying to triangulate all of that, and then we try to go to where we think makes the most sense, where ICE is out conducting its operations a moment, to try and document what is happening and bring you the truth of what is happening on the ground. Now we're in Minneapolis. I got here just yesterday. But we have been in a lot of other places besides that. Before this, John Farina, who we just picked up from the airport, was John. You want to put yourself on camera there? There's John. We're always grateful to have John because it means that I'm not a one-man band out here, and John actually makes me look good on camera, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you, John. We just picked up John from the airport, but I got here just yesterday. Before that, John was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where ICE did operations for, how long was that, John? A little over a week were they out there?
Where?
In Charlotte?
Yeah,
for a little...
Just under a week.
Just under a week that they were in Charlotte. And then before that, we were on the ground for nearly 2 months continuously in Chicago. And before that, we covered them when they were in New York. And before that, we covered them when they were on the ground in LA. And before that, we covered them, just about anywhere that they've been across the country. Yeah, we've been everywhere. We have sacrificed a lot of time doing exactly what you see right now. Internally, we make the joke, we call it ice fishing, because it's ice. You're trying, you're going out there to get them. Ice fishing seems particularly appropriate as a name when you're in frozen Minnesota. And we are here in the car with Andrew Mercado of Mercado Media. He is another independent journalist. Mercado started Mercado Media when back in 2020 on this very street. He's saying, I'm not sure how much the microphone's able to pick up. I'm going to try and pass the mic around as I can here in just a second. But started his independent media coverage here in Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots and the backlash against the racist actions of the Minneapolis Police Department during all of the fires and things that you would have seen coming out of the community then, and has continued his on-the-ground coverage. I met Andrew during our Chicago coverage when I was just... I shouldn't act like I've been a veteran with Status Coup now. I've only been with the team now for a couple of months, but just in those first few weeks, that's where I met Andrew. He was one of those. When I'm talking, when you hear me on these live streams, look around at some of these protests or some of these events that we're covering, and I'm saying there's no one else out here except for independent media. A lot of times the people that I'm referring to are Andrew Mercado and just a handful of others who who put their own bodies on the line to bring you the truth as to what is happening in these frontline fights against fascism. And what we do is not cheap. It costs us thousands and thousands of dollars to do these trips. Obviously, we got to fly John out here. I drove for over 4 hours to be out here. That's gas. We have to buy a hotel for an unknown length of stay. You know, when we buy these plane tickets, when we make these trips, that's one way when we're buying the ticket, because we don't necessarily know when we're going home. And then we're planning to stay there on the ground. That's food. That's gas to get around, as we're doing right now. Thousands and thousands of dollars to be in all of these cities, to continue to bring you this important on-the-ground coverage that we have been doing in cities like Minneapolis. So if you can, go to statuscoup.com/join. For as low as $5 a month, you help sustain us, keep us doing these on-the-ground reporting trips, documenting how this administration is conducting itself, the way it is disappearing people off of the streets, detaining American citizens for more than 24 hours, as we have seen happen here in Minneapolis and St. Paul recently. And Andrew, I do want to bring you in here a little bit to give you the chance to talk about your own outlet. Andrew's been so nice to show us around his city, to bring us, to take us to all of these neighborhoods that are being directly targeted right now, really showing off his knowledge. And I have been just so impressed with his ability as a driver, too, to quickly get us to where the scene, where the action is. So, Andrew, maybe just talk a little bit about what you do and the importance of independent media right now.
Yeah, so... I mean, you want to hold it? Yeah, so, I mean, you guys see it. You guys see what Status Coup does every day, right? When they're out in Chicago and bringing you guys the news and on-the-ground coverage. I was just with John in Washington, D.C., covering the Remove the Regime rally. And this is just what it is. A lot of the time, it's like mundane, like we're just hanging out. We're together so we can have our own, back and forth. But a lot of time, we're just waiting for the story to take place. We don't make the story happen. We report on the story. Like we're kind of like a third eye, right? Like a third perspective on everything that's going on. So a lot of the time, hey, this is just the work that goes into it. We're just cruising around. We got, like JT mentioned, you got signal chats up and etc. But that's similar to how I started. I started here on Lake Street in 2020 during the riots after George Floyd was murdered by the Minneapolis Police Department. And the way I was able to find information was I was looking at Snapchat heat maps, and where I saw a lot of posts, I would go to that location and I would just kind of use open source means to be able to get to the scene. And that's kind of similar to how we're doing today. That's how I was able to track Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which I've been covering for the past few years. And now we're back out into the streets after Trump won the presidency. It's kind of like a calling to come back to the fight here at home in the streets. It doesn't take away from the importance of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and what the Ukrainian people are going through. But my Mercado Media started here on Lake Street that we're driving on 5 years ago, and we're back covering this what I see as tyranny from the federal government and these ICE agents now in my home state again. Like we're back here again. But I've been following them. I went to Portland. I went to Chicago. I was there with you guys for a little bit. Didn't make it to Charlotte because of the DC event, but we've been covering the news as best as we can back out on the ground again, and this is just what goes into all of that, and these are the efforts that we have.
Yeah, and now we're a lot closer to home than certainly Ukraine, but even than Chicago for you, Mercado. Today we spent a good chunk of our day before we went and got John from the airport this afternoon. We spent our entire morning in Richfield and some of the other south suburbs around Minneapolis. And while we were out there, we were the only press there on the scene where ICE was what seemed to be, of course we can't confirm it, but what seemed to be ICE staging for a raid on a church, on the Church of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary in Richfield. And we were there on the scene, and that allowed us to talk to people who had been directly confronted by ICE agents, just in the action that they were taking to try and keep their own communities safe. And what that entails is that people will go out, they'll have whistles with them, they'll keep an eye out, they'll honk horns, they'll blow whistles as a way to warn the community that ICE agents are around here. They will film what happens between interactions between community members and ICE agents, and maybe some of these arrests and disappearances that we have been seeing here on the ground in Minneapolis and in cities across the country. But ICE has not taken very kindly to the way that people have been organizing against them and ways to try and notify the community when they are out. And that was on plain display today We were the only media there at the church right after ICE had confronted some people, including pulling guns on people. So, Colin, I want you to play the first clip here. This was given to us by someone who did not want to be named, but a community member who was out there doing some of this ICE watch, where ICE was directly confronted him, was yelling at him through his car window, even pushing their hands in through his car window, shoving a phone directly into his face. He told me that the phone was like being jabbed in his face, almost like a weapon. And this was not the first, this was not the only altercation like this that happened that day. We'll explain a little bit more on the other side of this clip. Colin, go ahead and hit play.
This is one and only warning to quit obstructing us
I'm
right
not
now.
obstructing anything, sir.
Then
One
explain-
and only warning, buddy. One and only warning. You got it? You
One
got
only
it?
warning.
You understand?
I'm not obstructing.
Yeah.
I'm not obstructing. I'm
One
observing.
more time, you're going to jail.
I'm not obstructing.
One more time,
I'm
you're
not
going to
obstructing.
jail.
I'm observing.
Got it.
Take a video of him.
I'm not
This is
obstructing.
last
I'm
warning.
observing.
This is your one and only warning.
One and only warning, sir. Next time you will be arrested for impeding. One more time. Sir, this is your
I'm not
warning.
obstructing. I'm
Stop
not obstructing.
So there you get a sense for what people are facing just in trying to do very basic actions. That gentleman told me that he had pulled into a public parks parking lot. And this is Roosevelt Park, I believe, in Richfield, which was just down the street from that church, had pulled into that parking lot. It's a long parking lot, I know, because we were there, and I'll tell you that story in just a second. But it was a long public parking lot. He pulls in there, and just because ICE is also there, they come up to him, they box in his car like that, and then they have that altercation with him, warning him over and over and over again, this is your one warning. This is your one and only warning. 6 or 7 times. So I don't know how many one and only warnings you get with ICE before they do take any action, if they'll take any action out here. But, and we certainly did see them harass more people than just that. But you start to get a sense for just how aggressive they are in these communities, even with people that they are not deliberately targeting because of the color of their skin, which is a lot of what they are doing out here in Minneapolis. They're targeting specifically out here to target the Somali community, which has a robust presence here in the state of Minnesota. There are tens of thousands of people of Somali descent here in the state, many of which are here in the city of Minneapolis. And Andrew, how close are we right now to Carmel Mall? Or are we driven away from it now?
We have now passed it.
We've passed it.
Right down there.
Okay, yeah. So we just drove past a few blocks ago. We just drove past the Caramel Mall, which has a lot of stores in it, right, Andrew, that are run by people of Somali descent. A lot of like Somali food that you can get there, et cetera, et cetera. And that has been one of the places that has been directly targeted by federal agents in their immigration raids out here. From the word jump, as soon as I got here, I barely had parked my car at my hotel when Andrew texts me and he says, I'm right around the corner and ready to pick you up. So I quickly grab all my gear. I get in his truck. We drive over to Caramel Mall. Nearly instantly, we come across what we think was an ICE vehicle. Did we ever get that confirmed, Andrew, that it was? No. Okay, so we're just a suspected run-in within, minutes of being here on the ground. That's how many ICE agents there are out here, and it's a very different model that they're following out here as compared to Chicago. In Chicago, we saw Border Patrol form these like long convoys, and they would drive through neighborhoods and be very public with what they were doing. Even if they were in unmarked cars, at a certain point, they would attract attention. But when they would attract that attention, they wouldn't immediately necessarily disappear. They would continue to try and go on their raids. Sometimes it seemed like they were even courting the cameras, that they wanted that attention. Out here, it's very different. When ICE gets spotted, it does seem like they try to scatter. They try to run back to home base, which appears to be the Whipple building, which is a federal building near the airport here. And they seem to make a sprint back for home or try to disappear into the community, try and make some evasive maneuvers here on the streets to get away from people who are attempting to follow them and alert the community as to where they are. So very different tactics in that way. But when they have the opportunity, they do directly confront people, and they're not afraid to get physical with people, as you saw in that clip. Right before that gentleman had an interaction, there was a similar interaction in that same parking lot with an elderly couple. And in that interaction, we have an interview that's going to be going up on a Status Coup's YouTube channel, and Mercado Media is going to have a similar interview going live here soon as well, with an elderly couple that had guns pulled on them and pointed at them, they say, by ICE agents. So, it's a harrowing story. They were very shaken when we were talking to them, because we talked to them just minutes after it happened, because we are here on the scene. Again, there was no other press there to get this story except us. And now we're seeing reports that likely Richfield's mayor is going to come out and have a statement about this, because this elderly couple had guns pulled on them as part of this altercation for doing the same thing that the gentleman in that clip did, which was just attempting to watch ICE see them, what they were doing. And they were staging just down the block from this Catholic church, the Church of the Assumption, that was holding a Spanish mass at the time. And we pulled up as mass was going on. There were community members out there with whistles, including this couple who had the guns pulled on them. Despite how shaken they were, they continued to stay there and report and try to keep their fellow community members safe. They didn't go home immediately after that. And that's something that I was struck by in Chicago as well, is just the bravery of people in continuing to stand up to the federal government in what is happening out here. I want to start to pivot, though, to the other clip. But maybe before I do, Andrew, I wanted to kind of get your reaction when you saw that clip that the guy shared with us of him being directly confronted by the ICE agents. Like, what was like going through your mind? What were your first thoughts and takeaways about it?
And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're going to get into it too. And we had pulled up into the park ourselves, but from that moment until we had started the interview, I had kind of been like, okay, ICE has already been probing this area. And then just by talking to both the elderly couple and then the gentleman, like, they were pretty shaken from the situation. They've never had firearms pulled on them before. I mean, most civilians don't. It's just not a natural thing. In the military, when I serve, we're trained in that situation. Like when the ICE come and bother us the couple times that they have, and JT's posted, and Status Coup will have the video soon, but for me, it's like they're trying to intimidate, and for some people it works well because they're like, oh no, I'm scared, but it's more on the emotion of the civilians that were engaging with it. And seeing that today, it was like, man, it reminded me, this is real, people are scared. And then to have federal agents pull firearms on you when you're just making sure that people can go to Sunday school and the kids can go to school safely, and they got the community alerts out there. But, it's a pretty stressful situation. And I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me was the lack of professionalism that the elderly couple was saying about those ICE agents, is that they had said that it seemed like they were brand new, like they don't have any training, like it was their first day on the job today, basically, with that interaction. So that part really stood out to me when we were interacting with the couple out there, and then also that individual that we were speaking to that also had the firearms pulled on them. It's a situation that, people had experienced in Chicago often when you had the less than lethals deployed on them. We had that a couple weeks ago here. It was the St. Paul Police Department. We're going to talk to the city tomorrow at the press conference about that. But the St. Paul Police Department deployed less than lethal. So, like, people are on edge right now. They just want to make sure their communities are safe. And when that situation like that had happened at the church happens today, that's likely why we're going to be seeing a response from the Richfield mayor, and also just the community's response in general on a continuous basis, is because of these situations and these intimidation tactics and lack of professionalism from these federal agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Andrew just talked there about some of the run-ins that we have had with ICE. As I said, I just got here yesterday, so this is day 2 on the ground here. We've already been, I don't know if you want to call it boxed in, because I don't know if you can say the first time we were really boxed in, because there wasn't anybody behind us, but we have been pulled over. I don't know how you would characterize it. We were boxed in today by ICE, and yesterday we were pulled over by them. In both interactions, they never came out and spoke to us. We had our media credentials out, and we were, very clearly filming what we were doing. I don't think it really took a genius to see that we were press. But still, they directly stopped us. And today's altercation was in that same parking lot, in that Roosevelt Park parking lot in Richfield, that the older couple had the guns pulled on them, and then that clip that you saw. that was in the same parking lot where we had one vehicle that pulled across the front of our truck. This was, again, a very long parking lot. We drove completely to the other end of where the ICE vehicles were, purposefully to give them space. We parked way at the other end just to see, okay, what are they going to do? We're here to cover whatever operations that they are apparently here to conduct, because there were 3 ICE vehicles all there. One vehicle pulls across the front of our truck. Another 2 pull in behind us. And then after sitting there for a little while, the vehicle in front of us finally pulled away. Again, they did not stop to get out and talk to us. And they stayed parked behind us for a little bit. And then they drove off. They left the parking lot after that. And then it was after that that we went over to the Catholic Church and we got the stories and some of these video clips that we've been playing for you. But yesterday's altercation, when we were out, again, just like we're doing now, driving around looking for ICE operations that are happening right now in Minneapolis, as we're driving around doing this, we're getting closer to the Whipple building, the federal building where we think a lot of this is being based out of. And during that time, the federal government, the federal agent, all of a sudden, in what looked like just a regular car, so the lights flash from it. They pull across the front of the vehicle. They stop us. They pull out a phone to take photos of us or our vehicle. It wasn't exactly clear exactly what they were trying to get a picture of, but they held us there for a while after they took the pictures. Then they rolled down their windows and played "Why Can't We Be Friends" out of the vehicle before they then drove off. Colin, if you could play that clip.
Is that them?
Is that them?
That's cute sounds. A nice meme.
All right. So the music is very faint there, but you can still hear there faintly in the background "Why Can't We Be Friends" playing, which is just, again, goes to that sense of professionalism, the questionable professionalism that we have seen. I shouldn't even give them that much credit. Fuck that. The just lack of professionalism that you see out here and the abject cruelty with which they conduct themselves. Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? We're not here to be friends. We are here to just cover the story. You're the ones who are boxing us in as we are trying to tell the story, try to document what is happening on the ground to these communities that are being directly targeted because the President of the United States does not like Somali people. We joked a little bit internally about what music should we have played back. We couldn't come up with John came up with a pretty good song suggestion. What was that, John?
Say we're just a friend.
And say we're just a friend. Yeah, baby, you. All right, I won't torture you with any more of my singing abilities, but I do want to cover some breaking news that's just being sent to me here by Jordan. Jordan is saying this is breaking news right now. Apparently, Donald Trump is considering replacing Kristi Noem, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, is considering replacing her with soon-to-be former Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, whose term is coming to an end, is going to be replaced by a Democrat there. That is very interesting to me because it seems like Noem has fully embraced this direction of just cruelty for the sake of cruelty and immigration enforcement policy. So is this just the Trump administration? I don't know. My brain immediately wants to interpret this in like the most humane possible way, that maybe they have found some sense of humanity and are now going to back off on what they're doing in some of these communities. But perhaps I'm giving them too much credit there. John is nodding his head like, yes, JT, you are giving them too much credit there. So that is something I certainly want to watch and get more details on. Jordan, if you're watching and you see further reporting on that, please send it my way. It's something I would love to cover here on the stream, because that's such an interesting dynamic, because we saw Kristi Noem actually go boots on the ground, so to speak, in Chicago, where she really inserted herself in that conflict there, where she wanted to be a part of the propaganda videos that they were producing out there. She toured around with Benny Johnson, the conservative commentator, and really tried to make it look as if Chicago was some crime-ridden hellhole where she wasn't even allowed to pee inside of government buildings because the local village hall turned her away when she tried to go use the bathroom at one point. But seemingly was doing everything that the Trump administration wanted her to do, was really empowering was really empowering Greg Bavino, a name that I would love to go 24 hours without saying just once, please, at some point. A Border Patrol commander who has really embraced the cowboy tactics that you saw there on the ground while we were reporting there on the ground in Chicago. And Jordan is texting me. He says, my hunch, Trump is unhappy she is trying to make herself a bigger star than him. And that, of course, is something that we have seen, of course, from this president before. No one is allowed to upstage him. The reality star president cannot share the spotlight. That is perhaps a more realpolitik sort of perspective than the rube Midwestern goody two-shoes take that I would want to have, which is hopefully everybody just wants to be friends with one another. So you saw, we were just playing there, the way that they have continued to harass press. That's a theme. Not only are they pulling us over here in Chicago, they were, of course, tear gassing us. You saw from our coverage there how we were directly targeted along with peaceful protesters, along with, in fact, even local police who were tear gassed along with everybody else inside of in Chicago. But those tactics that you're seeing, the way that they were pulling us over there in that clip, that's not just reserved for journalists, of course. They're also doing that with other folks. There was at one point when we were driving around today, after we left the church, where we noticed some of the ICE vehicles that that had been identified through some of these signal chats and other means that we've been using to try and figure out where ICE is. Some of these vehicles, we noticed some of them behind us. And at first we thought that they were directly following us, and we weren't exactly sure why. But then they suddenly turned off onto an exit ramp onto the highway, and they boxed in a vehicle down there. And we quickly pulled around, drove around, parked a little ways behind them on this exit ramp, and captured video of them as they're having an interaction with the people in this car. You can see in this clip that I'm about to play, there were at least 3 vehicles involved. Andrew, did you see if there was any more than that? It was at least 3 vehicles involved to pack in this one car that had apparently at least 3 people in it, because I've seen video from inside this vehicle. But Colin, why don't you just play exactly how many resources they use just to harass somebody, because they pull this car over. You don't see it in this clip, but they eventually allow this car to drive away. Colin, go ahead and hit play on this.
Multiple federal agents getting out.
Where are we right now?
We're on the exit of 12th Avenue and
So there you see, yeah, how they they pull out all of these resources just to pull over one car. As I was saying, I've seen video from inside the car. The ICE agents are accusing the driver of drinking while driving, which everybody in the car pushes back on very loudly. And it really seems like the ICE agent is just kind of embarrassed for being recorded as they pulled over a car that just contains people who are American citizens, and is then trying to save face on the recording of the video, saying, oh, be sure to tell everybody that you were drinking and driving, which, oh, holy shit, is not what ICE's purview is at all, doing local traffic stops. So that's certainly a question that we're going to have for local authorities around here, is should immigration agents be enforcing local traffic laws around here? But like I said, I've seen that video, so as soon as we're actually done here with the live, I'm going to reach out and try and get a copy of that video for us to use in our future reporting as well, to show exactly how ICE is looking for any excuse, or will throw really any shit at the wall to see what sticks here. In the way that they're pulling people over, in the way that they are just, targeting people based really on the color of their skin, or the vehicle that they happen to be driving, or where they happen to be driving, just because that happened to be in that Richfield neighborhood, again, where they would been conducting, it seemed like staging for a raid on the Catholic Church before they got a lot of community attention on them. Andrew, when you saw that, I mean, you were kind of just, you know, we were both there along for the ride. When you saw them quickly pull off, and it was you actually saw like, oh shit, they're boxing somebody in. What was going through your mind as to about like what we were about to see?
So we were alerted to a Lutheran school, and we had went there and sat in there for a while, and then we had went to another location, and on our way back, a vehicle that I had recognized to be ICE was in that parking lot, and then they pulled out, so I thought they were following us. And then as the ICE convoy went to get off on 494 from 12th Avenue onto the on-ramp, they just box in a car. And then I turned around and pulled behind them because I saw they turned their lights on and like did like a traffic stop. And how is that even possible? How are they pulling people over as if they're like beat cops or as if they're the city police? I don't know how the city will respond to that from what we had seen. But then, yeah, watching it from afar, we're seeing them out of their vehicle. We didn't know if they were about to detain this person. We don't know there's no answers to anything. They don't even tell what they're doing. And then to be able to see the video from inside the car, which we have now, and like JT said, we're going to see if we're able to post it. They are completely just harassing the person in the car. Like they're not doing anything other than like, why are you filming us? And we're mad, basically. And then they have a whole bunch of nonsense. But to see that, you know, right after we had experienced what we did today at the school in Richfield, tells me that I don't think ICE really appreciates all the attention they're getting, which is weird to me. And me and JT talked about this earlier, because they seem to like the attention, and then they want the attention, and they do propaganda, and they do these reels and steal content and steal songs from people. And then when out here in the streets, when the community's giving them attention and they're tracking them, they don't seem to like it very much.
Yeah, then it's suddenly, let's be sure to tear gas these peaceful protesters. Let's be sure to directly target press, to directly pull them over. And the way we're putting ourselves on the line here by pulling up right behind an ICE convoy as they're attempting an operation like that, or pulling into the same parking lot where they're staging apparently for and it ended up being what looked like a scuttled raid on a church. When we're doing that, I mean, it's not easy work. Like we're out here for hours and hours. We got started, you know, we wake up, we peel our heads off the pillow, we start texting, all right, let's get out there. We get out there, and then we're out here all day, and we're putting ourselves online. We're getting pulled over by ICE ourselves, and there's no other media press that are doing this. I have no doubt that there will be coverage in probably at least some of the local outlets about ICE pulling a gun here on somebody, but they're not going to have been there and gotten the story directly from the people right after it happened, getting the video of the people, from the people in the car, the way that we just played for you. I bet there's not going to be any other press that have that video, because we were there to speak to the one guy who got it, who was in the car, because we put ourselves there and because we are making ourselves available all the time. And that is why it's so important to support independent media right now, because the New York Times of the world, the CNNs of the world, where is the Washington Post right now? I saw them write a story from a distance where they were calling up people who live in Minnesota, asking them what's it like to live there right now. I guess that's a step, that's something. But I haven't seen any national outlets actually putting themselves on the ground doing what we are doing on a day in, day out basis. Instead, what they do is they call around, they call up people who say, oh, I feel scared that, you know, living in Minneapolis right now. And then they also are sure to print the propaganda that's coming out of the Trump administration and act as if the truth lies somewhere in the middle. The way I was phrasing it to Andrew just yesterday is like, on one side you have 10,000 peaceful protesters who are all screaming, get out of our community, you make us feel less safe. And on the other side you've got, you know, 3 wannabe fascists who are saying like this thing, you know, we are making it safe. And then the press and then you've got corporate press in the middle going like, the truth must lie somewhere in the middle of these 2 points of view. Who can say which side is right? We should have a point of view from nowhere that doesn't lift up the disenfranchised, that doesn't lift up the people who don't have voices, that just gives free play to a federal government that has functionally limitless resources and the ability to spit out their propaganda that we have seen, including stealing our video in order to be able to produce that propaganda. But that's a rant for another day. I do want to bring it back to that reporting that Kristi Noem might be replaced by Glenn Youngkin. This is reporting from The Bulwark. For weeks, a rumor has been circulating in political circles that Noem may soon be on the outs. It briefly surfaced in a CNN... God damn, do I love this messy drama. I love messy drama reporting of the Trump administration. Yeah. It briefly surfaced in a CNN report a few weeks back that listed her first among the cabinet officials who could be caught in a year-end turnover, noting that while Trump himself had been happy with Noem, top White House officials have grown frustrated with her tenure, specifically her employment of her divisive and combustible chief advisor, Corey Lewandowski. Noem has downplayed any tensions or concerns, and in a text to me, Lewandowski called bullshit on any talk of the turnover. Quote, "None of that is true," he said Thursday evening. But in conversations with 3 former DHS officials who served in both the Biden and Trump administrations and are still in touch with current staff, it was made clear that Trump is indeed considering moving on from Noem. And the reporting goes on, but I just want to pause there to note that there's also been a lot of reporting about the way that Kristi Noem has been directly enriching people in her inner circle at DHS with the way that she has used the inflated DHS budget. A lot of the advertising and marketing budgets for a lot of these agencies, including ICE, have been dramatically inflated to try and get more recruits to join these goon squads that are patrolling around cities like Minneapolis, where we are right now, and using that money, funneling that money to several outlets. This is reporting from ProPublica, is funneling that to several Republican strategy groups that have direct connections to Noem and some of her friends, funneling all of that money into these strategy groups that are then creating the ads. So a lot of your tax dollars are now being funneled, reportedly, to Kristi Noem's friends, because she enjoys that position of power. 2 of those, and then this is returning to the Bulwark's reporting. 2 of those officials said they believed such a move, meaning removing Noem, could happen really soon, quote unquote, relaying that they've been told Noem has been taking on less of a role in directing department memos. And then this is from Jordan. For context, ABC News' Jonathan Karl reported Kristi Noem wasn't even a candidate for DHS Secretary. Trump's inner circle was shocked when he named her. And Karl reported that Trump gave it to her as a favor to his 2016 campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. There has been reporting and rumors that Noem and Lewandowski had an affair. God damn, do I love messy Trump administration drama. You don't need the Real Housewives when you have Trump administration drama reporting. I don't understand anybody who tunes into Bravo when you can just turn on the news. Or turn on Status Coup and support Status Coup. StatusCoup.com/join. For $5 a month, you can keep this messy Trump administration reporting coming directly to you. But more seriously, you keep us here on the ground in Minneapolis doing what we're doing right now, which is patrolling around for ICE. So I wanted to talk to all 3 of us here in the car a little bit about how we do this. Maybe, John, if we can kind of zoom out and kind of give a tour of the inside of the car here, first of all. So we've got, you can see our 3 screens that are mounted here across the front of the car where we're monitoring various signal chats, where we're streaming things, tracking our own video that's going out to you guys right now. We've got camera equipment and chargers that are loaded up here in the front. We've got camera equipment that's loaded back here in the back with me. I had this camera with me, so for a while before John got here this afternoon, it was just me and Andrew as we were tooling around, so I had to have my camera constantly at the ready to jump out and get video, because you never are sure what are you going to roll up on. Is it going to be an ICE operation that's in progress? You need to be ready to go. You've got to have all of your camera gear on. I've got microphones that are somewhere. Oh, God, I might be missing them. They're probably in my pocket. But thank you. Andrew knows where all of my equipment is. So I've got microphones that are shoved in my pockets right now, ready to whip out so I can record everything that's happening as it's happening. I've got a piece of equipment right here that we're using to bring you this stream right now. We've got more camera equipment piled here behind John. So it's all very tight quarters in here. And this is what we're doing for hours and hours, is we're patrolling around in these neighborhoods where ICE has had an activity, and patience is the name of the game. And it really goes from nothing is happening to all of a sudden you're at a dead sprint. And I guess if I could just get your guys' thoughts on like the similarities and the differences that we have seen covering ICE now in these different and their operations in some of these different cities. I can lead us off and talk a little bit about here in Minneapolis so far. What I have seen is that ICE, like I said earlier in the stream, likes to scatter. When kind of like you flick on the light and all the bugs in the room go running for cover. It's a lot like that. Like people are showing up and ICE is scattering for the most part. There've been a few high profile incidents where they have not, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing them travel in smaller groups. So at least to my mind, Chicago was hard to track down ICE. John and Andrew, I'm really curious for your thoughts on this. Like to me, what made finding ICE and Border Patrol in Chicago difficult was the sheer size of that city. By the time you would drive over to a neighborhood, they would be, it'd take you half an hour, 45 minutes to get over there, and then they're gone. Like they've wrapped up operations there. But you run into traffic. Oh my God, how many times did we run into traffic on 290? It so far has been, and I don't know if this is just your city putting on a good show for us here, Andrew, but like it's a lot easier to get around here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so in that way, it's been a lot easier. And they seem to have like concentrated their efforts more in a more condensed fashion near that Whipple building, that federal building, in the neighborhoods that they've been patrolling in. At least for the last 2 days that I've been here, I've been very close to that building. Curious for you, and John, you can probably weigh in on like the differences that you've seen in Charlotte and in New York as well, and how they compared to, I'm using Chicago because that was the last city that I was in as my base here, but what are you seeing that's similar and different? I guess I'll start with Andrew since the camera's on him.
Yeah, so similar difference, still the federal government at the end of the day. You got different agencies. And I think that's on purpose too. They make it confusing. You don't know who's who. You don't know, hey, is that ICE? Is that Border Patrol? Is it DSI, DHS? What, like, is it the military? Is it the National Guard? And that's on purpose. I feel like the Trump administration's purposely trying to confuse people so they don't know what's what, so you just comply. So no matter what, like, it's uniform, authority figure, comply. Which that's not how it works at all. Like you don't have you do not have to, like, federal agents do not have power over you if you're just observing what they're doing. They can't come into your space and detain you or do anything to you because you have the First Amendment right to stand there and your freedom of speech and freedom of observation if that's what you're doing. So like JT said, we've seen sporadic situations that can happen. It is easier to travel around in the Twin Cities than Chicago by far. With Greg Bavino and the Border Patrol, they move around in a posse, right? But Greg Bavino's kind of got his police that he keeps around him when he travels around. So like when you do find them, you're with them and you see them and they're loud and they want to be seen. But it's just a matter of getting to them. But here it's really just tracking the community response in order to be able to get to where we're going. Like we're really plugged into the Minneapolis, St. Paul communities, and they've been organizing. We had a protest yesterday that me and JT went to. It was like there was an anti-war twist to it, but it's still the same message. They were still against ICE at the same time. But like tomorrow there will be protests we're going to. We had a protest in the extreme cold on Thursday outside of Target because ICE agents were using Target as a place where they can stage. And now, I don't know if JT mentioned, but the Minneapolis mayor put out an executive order to where they can't use ramps, they can't use government, they can't use city resources to stage their vehicles in. And then they also open the door for private businesses to reject the federal agents from using their parking lots for staging. So we've had like and then you also had Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara yesterday put out a pretty strong statement. I'm not gonna quote him exactly, but he had essentially said that, if the Minneapolis Police Department has to respond to a situation in which ICE is harassing people or whatever, then he expects the Minneapolis police to have the backs of the people and not play security for ICE agents. And so, I mean, that's a statement. That's something we'd have to see play out for real because that's such a statement. But I mean, hey, it's something. And it signals that the city of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities aren't necessarily siding with the federal agents, at least from like with a city perspective. But we've had to track that. We've had to make sure that, you know, hey, the city is keeping their word. The protests, I mean, and also like in Chicago, you had the Broadview protests that you could always return back to. You know, they had like a centralized protest right out here. It's kind of hard. It's cold. You know, holding space all day long in this weather is very tough to do. And I commend anyone that would do it. So that's just kind of the difference is like we don't have a consistent protest that is at like the Whipple building that, you know, where we're seeing detainees being taken to. We saw that a lot in Broadview, and a lot of protesters being able to directly protest those ICE agents as they're coming in. So it's a lot more legwork here. Well, vehicle work, I guess. We're not really on the ground walking around, but you know, it's a lot more trying to do open source intelligence gathering. And that's basically what a lot of this work it boils down to right now. And the difference between here and Chicago, like JT said, size difference, ability to get to location quickly, and then being able to get, you know, figure out the information and make sure that we're going to the right place too. So, you know, we can be there on scene for any potential raid or, you know, any harassment, which is what we've experienced, is ICE harassing community members from just following them and tracking them.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that you don't necessarily see, like the behind-the-scenes work that goes into it, like the hours and hours. Like you might see a video posted on Twitter from a journalist covering what ICE or Border Patrol is doing in some of these communities, and it's like a 20-second clip of absolute, you know, brutality or something that's just horrible to look at in the way that these communities and families are being ripped apart. But all of the work that goes into actually being able to be in the right spot to get that shot, I mean, it's hours and hours of work to be sure that, like Andrew was just talking about, like making sure things are confirmed. Am I going to a scene that's actually going to be a scene? Do we have enough information? Is it worth us going all the way to get there? And then once we're there, can we find the action that's happening? And then can we get out and actually, you know, get our cameras there and actually get the shot to be able to show people this is what is happening, so that it's not just the Trump administration's propaganda that's out there as to the way that they are conducting themselves in these communities. Is all about safety. It's all about safety. You understand? We are just, yeah. It's all about we're so transparent. Look at us. We posted this Twitter thread where we used several allusions to white nationalist memes in order to communicate what we are doing out here in these communities is entirely on the up and up. So it's not just that messaging that's out there. There's a lot of work that goes into it here behind the scenes. I also want to note, because Andrew called out what the Minneapolis police chief said about the way that they are going to try and respond to federal agents out here in the communities. To that end, I've actually put in open records requests with the city of Minneapolis for some communications there between the mayor and the police chief about their strategy setting, essentially, of how they are going to handle protests and actually responding to ICE agents as well. So we can actually, they're saying one thing publicly, what's being said behind the scenes. So be on the lookout for that reporting. I've also put in requests for interviews with the mayor of Minneapolis, the mayor of St. Paul, and many other local leaders here. So some things to look forward to as we continue to be on the ground here. But I don't want to get too far afield because I want to bring John in, because, my God, if anybody has been on the ground covering all of this stuff, it has been John. He has been in city after city after city now, covering this immigration crackdown. And John, I want to bring you in and like the similarities and differences you're seeing in tactics across various cities.
Well, I mean, basically, you guys described Chicago and what's happening here in Minneapolis, but I would say Charlotte with Border Patrol, it was a lot easier for them to get around and kind of do their operations because it wasn't as condensed, like the population, like people were more spread out, you know, more so than it is here, like here or in Chicago. So, you know, it was mostly just people who were witnessing these operations. Like, let's say they pulled into Border Patrol pulled into a parking lot of like a supermarket, and they just went up to a car and asking for papers for ID from people sitting in the car, and people coming out of the store would just start filming them and harassing them and telling them to leave, and just sort of stuff like that. And then Border Patrol, I was out with Pierre, who's another photojournalist. We were driving around and we noticed Border Patrol were parked in a gas station. So I said, "Oh, that's them over there. Let's pull over and see where they go." So they had about, I would say, 5 cars. Damn, What's going on?
This is a tight space. It's all good.
Yeah.
Take turns, and the streets are so thin.
Yeah, sorry everybody. We're
Yeah.
we're navigating snow-choked Minneapolis city streets right now. Requires quite a bit of focus.
So, I would say there were about. I'm listening to myself on my earpods. I would say there were about 5 of the cars. The Border Patrol convoy, and 4 of them took off. One of them noticed that we were following them, so they kind of slowed down a bit to let the other guys go up ahead. And then they kind of took off a different direction than the other group. And so we followed the last car. We just, they knew that we were behind them. We gave them space. We obviously we're not honking. We're not blowing whistles. So we're just kind of quiet driving around a community. And we went around the block maybe 5 times. We saw people outside. They saw Border Patrol and they noticed them, and then they went back into the house. And then they eventually, once they turned the corner, we kind of had a feeling they were going to come out and approach us. So that's when they came out of the car. They had to walk maybe like 50 feet to come to our car, which was behind them, and basically, saying, "Oh, why are you following us?" I said, "Oh, we're just driving around. We're not following." But, we were well within our constitutional right to stay behind them and document their operation. But they came over to intimidate us, and basically stating the code. I forgot what the code was, 1811 or something like that.
US 111.
Yeah, which is impeding, assaulting, or whatever, interfering, but which we were doing none of that. And you could go check this footage out on our channel. But yeah, so Charlotte was very different, and they were only there for about less than a week. I don't know how many people they arrested, but it was just a couple hundred people, and only very few of them had records or whatever. But yeah, I don't know why they decided to leave after just a week. But now they're in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I can fill in a little bit of John's gaps about why they left after only less than a week. It was because the Thanksgiving holiday was coming up. The reason they went to North Carolina even to begin with, it seems, was so that Greg Bovino could get home. Their commander, the Border Patrol commander, could get home. He's from North Carolina, could get home for Thanksgiving. And that's why their operation was curtailed, because the Thanksgiving holiday seems to have come up. He goes home for Thanksgiving. And then finally, after they come back from their break, now it's December. It's cold in places like Chicago and in Minneapolis. So Border Patrol doesn't go there. Now Border Patrol finds themselves in the much warmer climates of New Orleans. And I tell you, wouldn't I love to be in New Orleans? But we don't go where it's where just because it's warm. We go where the story is. And not to say there's not a story in New Orleans as well, but there's certainly one to be told here in Minneapolis, which is what we are doing and goes to being so important. Yeah, John.
So let me talk about New Orleans. We have friends that are there documenting, covering. Basically, police are assisting. The local police there are assisting Border Patrol in their operations by creating barriers and setting up roadblocks, and from press and activists. So Border Patrol is very comfortable in where they are now in Louisiana.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Very different than Chicago.
Yes. Very different, John just said off the mic. It's very different from Chicago, and that's the thing. Is like each of these operations seems to take on their own flavor based on the city or the region that they are in. And it's why it's like, when John references, like, we have friends that are out there covering it, like, these are other independent journalists who are out there doing it. It's not like we're not referencing necessarily like a New York Times reporter or something like that. Like, some of these independent journalists will get work for the Times, but it's all temporary stuff that they'll go out there, they might get some photographs that they'll license out to some of these national outlets. But that's because the national outlets themselves don't have footprints on the ground here. When it comes to national outlets, it's people like us. It's Status Coup. It is Mercado Media. Like, that is who is actually on the ground there. Even if our stuff ends up getting licensed and used in, by the CNNs of the world, by the Washington Posts of the world. The people who are actually putting themselves on the line here are us, which is why it's so important. StatusCoup.com/join. $5 a month goes to keep us on the ground here. I also want to continue to shout out Mercado Media. Like, we have to lift each other up. Like, we couldn't be doing what we're doing right now if it wasn't for Andrew driving us around, knowing this city inside and out, knowing a lot of the activist community, knowing what's, like, he's making a lot of the judgment calls here. Thank you, Andrew, for everything you've been doing. Like, you've just been a rock star there in the driver's seat. That necessarily, we're giving people a taste of it now, but when it's just hour after hour, as it's been with, that I've had now over the last 2 days with, Andrew in the car, like he knows where to go. He knows how to get there quick. He knows how to, get there safely, at the same time. And, but it's really just, and he's out here offering a lot of the same phenomenal coverage that we are trying to offer for him. This is his hometown, which is his own, it just brings, I'm sure, your own emotions along with it to see everything that's happening out here. So got to lift each other up here. We band together because it gets a lot easier. We're able to cover the story a lot more robustly when we're all in the car together, because somebody can be doing directions. Right now we're doing this live stream, so Andrew's kind of on his own to be navigating everything, in addition to me shoving the microphone in his face and being like, here, also do my job for me at the same time. But it makes it a lot easier on us. Like, we have to lift each other up in these times to be sure that we're all safe, that we can all get the story, and we all work together in that way. So I believe firmly in lifting up other independent outlets like Mercado Media here. Andrew, I would kind of be curious. I just kind of opened the door myself here. Like, what does it feel like to see your own community now become the one that's in the crosshair? You've seen it now happen with these other cities, with LA, with Portland, with Chicago, and now that those crosshairs seem to be trained firmly on the Twin Cities. How does it make you feel as a resident?
Not any good. It validates what I had predicted going into the year, though, that when the immigration enforcement and the National Guard was sent to Los Angeles and they had started messing with California, I had already known Minnesota was going to be on the list eventually. Tim Walz was the runner. He was the vice president select for Kamala Harris, and he obviously has beefed with Trump personally, and Trump, it takes personal, he wants revenge on people that are politically against him. So Tim Walz being our governor, I mean, I already knew Minneapolis, and I actually had told my stream all year that, hey, like, eventually Minneapolis, it's going to come back here, and sure enough, here we are, like, at the end of the year in December. I was thinking we were going to make it through the year without any federal enforcement like we're seeing now, but right at the end, because speaking of New Orleans, I had actually planned to go to New Orleans with our friends that are there. Like, we got Amanda Moore is there, you got Scooter Caster is there, doing great. Ford Fisher, I think, it just showed up. So the great independent journalists that are out there. And we were, I think, you guys are going to likely go too. We would have been there, but now, hey, like, we got these federal raids here at home. And for me, I mean, I'm from Minnesota. This is the Twin Cities where I got started. Like I mentioned earlier, I started during the riots out here after George Floyd was murdered, and I followed that story every day. I was in the streets for 15 to 18 hours a day streaming on Facebook, like going up and down this very street, Lake Street, back and forth. So, I mean, I already knew right away it was important to plug back in and make sure that the Twin Cities gets the attention that it deserves during these raids. And, I just want to continue to do that. But, yeah, as a resident here, this is my home. I want to make sure my people get the information that they're looking for. I have family that are here that is looking for everything that's going on. So, it's really close to home, and it kind of puts me right back into 2020 again, but a lot colder. A lot colder.
Yeah. And Andrew's making reference to the fact that, this was the scene of the George Floyd riots. There are whole parts of the city that still have not been rebuilt. Like, as we drive around here, Andrew will point out a place to me and be like, oh yeah, that building burned down. And the scars in this community are still very much left. And that's a story that's continuing to be worth covering. I was just talking to Andrew. I'm going to try and get in touch with some of the activist community out here, who was doing a lot of organizing back at that time to really get that sense of how far has Minneapolis and the Twin Cities come from those from 2020, and how much further does it have to go in the name of progress? Yeah, go for it, Andrew.
One more thing, if I could mention too, as well as some of the research we did going into the year, actually into the election last year, was Project 2025. And, you know, it kind of became a meme and like kind of a thing, but it is a real thing. It's the Heritage Foundation's plans for the United States and taking the reins of government and sending these federal agents, mixing them in with the military. It's all part of that document and that plan. And so this is just a part of it. Yes, it's important to hyper focus on making sure our immigrant communities are safe and giving this story the attention it needs. But as you zoom out, you know, according to what I read in that document in Project 2025, and I read it out on stream and we went into it, took hours, but a lot of this is lining up with the plans that the Heritage Foundation had put into that document. And we're seeing it in real time now with the federal agents in our cities. It's all part of that.
Yeah, despite the Trump administration, or despite Trump on the campaign trail wanting to claim that he had no idea about Project 2025, wasn't involved with it, tried to distance himself as much as he could. Well, what's the lived reality here is that they're actually carrying out that draconian wish list of fascistic goals. I want to bring in our chat a little bit, mainly just to read off this comment from the Relaxed Guys 5888, who says, Canadian here, actually thought you were looking for ice holes to fish in. Anyhow, good luck, neighbors. Well, yeah, different kinds of ice fishing are now happening in the United States, but thank you to our neighbors from the north for tuning in to our personal authoritarian dissent here in the United States. Glad that we can make good TV for you. But since you're here, maybe consider, I've talked a lot about like financially supporting us here on the stream. I should probably back up to say, like, I recognize that is not in the cards. Even as low as $5 a month or 16 cents a day is, you know, there's going to be people who can't afford that. If you can, I mean, I think anybody here can afford to click. Share this stream, like this stream. It's something that I try to harp on here, but that is that a lot of these social media giants, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everybody, they do not value real journalism. They don't value the on-the-ground reporting. They don't actively work to boost it in their algorithms. So we have to rely a lot on you being able to get this stream out. So doing things like signaling to the algorithm that this is good content, that things that more people should be watching, these are stories that people should be paying attention to, the way that American cities are being occupied, the way that families, communities are being torn apart. Using your tax dollars, please send that signal to the algorithm by either liking or subscribing. You can at least manage that for us, please, and thank you. We would be very grateful as we go on the ground here in another city. We've been in Minneapolis, we've been in Charlotte, we've been in Chicago, we've been in D.C., we've been in L.A., we've been in New York, we've been at Alligator Alcatraz. That's just on this one story, and there are so many other stories of places where corporations have just gone outright poisoned people that we love to cover. The data centers right now that are happening, that are putting such a strain on people's water supplies, the way that your electricity bills are skyrocketing at a time where inflation was already out of control, where the cost of living is on everyone's lips because it seems so impossible. Even if you're doing everything right that you were told to do in this country, you're working a full-time job, your spouse is working a full-time job, maybe you've held off having kids, you haven't been able to afford a home, and now you can't even afford the basics of groceries or your electric bill because of the way that corporations continue to price gouge. These are all stories that we are covering. Maybe you're trying to organize a union at your workplace and it's being squashed, or you are in the throes of unionizing. Maybe you work at a Starbucks right now that is on strike. These are all stories that we have been covering here on the ground in ways that corporate press, mainstream press just has not. So any support that we can earn is much appreciated. I do want to start to probably start to draw the stream here to a close. We've covered all of like the big points that I really wanted to cover coming into tonight, but I wanted to kind of toss back to you guys one more time about maybe some of the themes that you want to watch here in Minneapolis, since Andrew, this is a little different for you because since you live here, it's not necessarily the start of coverage for you, but at least looking forward into the future. John, since you're just arriving here, like, what are some of the themes that you want to tease out? Andrew, what are some of the themes that you're looking for as to like how things might play out here in Minneapolis that we can tell people to pay attention to in our future coverage of what's happening out here?
Well, there we go. Tomorrow's a new week. It's a Monday. We got press conference at noon right away. So we're going to get fresh information from city leaders, especially a fresh update on hopefully we'll be asking questions about the status of the operation. Maybe we can get how long it's going to last. Like it's a brand new week. We also have protests tomorrow. There's protests going to be taking place in the city. So we'll be doing some protest coverage. At least I will be. I'm sure they will be on the ground as well. Status Coup will be there. And we play it by ear. I mean, Minneapolis is a very active community. There's a lot of activists here. So, I mean, protests could pop up on a moment's notice, and like people are ready. People are ready for that here. So the cold won't deter the city. It might get colder out here, but the community is still standing together even during all of this. So I mean, we're going to be out here doing what we're doing, sticking with the story, listening to the channels, hopefully getting to the scene. When ICE is there, and we can. If there's a liaison we can talk to or anything, they haven't talked to us. They just have done intimidation tactics and been weird. They've been weirdos, I think, to us. But if they had a liaison to talk to or they were doing it the right way, they wouldn't be acting like this. They wouldn't be just patrolling our streets here in the Twin Cities looking for people. Like it's weird. It's not normal, and I've consistently talked about it to where if there was serious like drug kingpins or they were going on RICO or whatever, like going after hardened criminals, they would be working with the city. They'd be working with the state. They wouldn't be trampling over even our own law enforcement here in the Twin Cities, which I'm sure they're feeling as well. And our city leadership, they have their hands tied. Not making excuses for them though, but when you have the federal government just coming in and doing what they're doing, their hands are tied. So all those questions are important, making sure they're not working with, keeping an eye out, making sure our local city officials and our law enforcement aren't working with the feds now, right? Because they chose this, like they're not working with our city, so now we got to make sure our city is not working with them to be doing security for them or to be detaining people for the feds. Like they've clearly made it to where they're not going to work with them, so we got to validate that. We got to and that's kind of more of a fluid thing. Like we're not just going to be consistently asking questions to the local PD all the time. That's something that we're going to be able to see ourselves. Like if we pull up to a scene, is the local law enforcement out there providing a 360 for the feds, and that's all stuff that we'd see in the moment. But so that's something we're looking forward to. So just some of the themes: community response, leadership response this week, and also the scale and scope of these federal raids. Like how long are they going to last? Are they gonna expand into other parts of Minnesota? Like those are questions that I think we need to find out.
John, I'm really curious to hear, how what you're looking to for themes here in Minneapolis, or what you're, wanting to see that might be similar or different to some of the other cities that you've covered so far.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that on my way here because I've been so occupied with Border Patrol. It's just been Border Patrol since September 27th. I haven't really, dealt with ICE since before then. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect because, Border Patrol, the operations, it was just very, very different. I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect, but yeah, everything Andrew said.
Well, I really like that insight though about the difference in tactics, because it was Border Patrol that was like, when we're reporting on like whole neighborhoods being tear gassed, kids being tear gassed in Chicago, like that's Border Patrol that's doing. That's what John's referencing there with that, like since September 27th, that's when he arrived on the ground in Chicago.
ICE was also the ones, so before Border Patrol got there on September 27th, it was ICE agents who were firing the pepper balls, the rubber bullets, the snipers on the roof, the tear gas. That first Friday protest that I got there, I guess it was the 26th, September 26th. So that was ICE agents who were doing that. So they do have those weapons. It's not just Border Patrol. Right. So they, I'm sure they're gonna use whatever they can. But yeah, after that it was just Border Patrol. So I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm very curious to see that too. I've already talked at length on this stream about how things, how this the difference in tactics that I've already noticed between here in Chicago in just a couple of days. I'm very curious to see that. I'm really, really interested. And this has been something that I have directly sent to all the local leaders who I've been requesting to interview, has been, what is the local response going to look like? Because I've definitely seen Some of the leaders out here are learning lessons from places like Chicago, because where it took Chicago weeks and weeks of occupation before their mayor came out, before Brandon Johnson came out and said, okay, ICE cannot use any federal buildings, or federal agents cannot enter any city buildings or stage there in any way. That took weeks and weeks for them to issue that order. That came almost immediately here from Minneapolis, like instantly learning that lesson. So what are the other lessons, especially since your citizenry has, and I've been very impressed with the level of organizing out here in the Twin Cities already in just the little bit of time that I've been here, and the conviction and the zeal that people are using to conduct themselves. I'm very impressed with that. I'm very curious to see if the city government will try to effectively quash that in the way that we saw in Chicago and in Broadview, where local authorities were essentially, despite claims that they would not work with ICE, effectively became security guards for ICE and were weaponized against people who were just attempting to exercise their First Amendment right to protest. If we'll see a similar pattern play out here in Chicago, I want to take a moment here to recognize people who have supported us here on the stream. So first of all, I want to read out our super chat. So the first one is from Kimp4412, who gave us $5 and said, "We need to work on hosts for your city visits to help save money. Thoughts?" You are not the only one, Kimp, who has raised that. When we were in Chicago, we had a couple of people who reached out to us and offered to let us stay in their homes, which is a very generous offer. Here's the troubles with that. It's very generous, and I think that the people who are offering that to us may not understand exactly how generous of an offer that is, because we are coming and going at all times of day. Like sometimes we're up at the crack of dawn, or we're out until very late. For instance, very recently there was a noise protest outside of a hotel where ICE agents were suspected of staying here in the Twin Cities, and that was at midnight. So that's when that activity would have started. So then you think about, like, okay, we're out there for the whole time that we're out there covering it, and then like the time to journey back. Like, are we stumbling back into someone's private home at 2 a.m, and maybe we're covered in tear gas that we're then leaving on all of their surfaces, and like touching all of their couches and stuff for their children or their cats to get into. Like, that's something you've really got to think about with this, is like, and like I said, we buy one-way plane tickets to these places. You might be signing up for us to be on your couch for weeks and weeks, and you might like John and I enough through the camera in short stints like this, but imagine me talking endlessly like this at you, for 2 weeks straight. You might come to sour on me as a person, and then what are you going to do? Are you going to kick me out of your house? I certainly couldn't blame you for it, but no, like that is like, hey, if what I just described to you is not off-putting, like, you can reach out to us with the offer. We'll certainly consider it, but I just want people to be very aware of what we're considering. But thank you very much for your donation. We appreciate it. And then we have Cecil Loratiz 3135 who gave us $5 and says, "I am a devout Catholic. Thank you for all that you do. Stay safe. May God bless you and protect you always." Thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. Invoking the religion. I grew up Catholic. John, you've made allusions to growing up Catholic. Yeah. Okay. So we got a bunch of Catholic boys here, but I don't know if they were all altar boys. I certainly was. No, okay, communion. All right, got it. But yeah, so yeah, we're pretty, like, I understand that connection to faith. Thank you for bringing it up. I will point out that, again, it seemed like earlier today ICE was staging. Seems like ICE was staging for a raid on a Catholic church here in the Minneapolis area. So that they're certainly not above it. They don't hold those spaces to necessarily be sacred, but we thank you for your support. Classy Anti-Fascist gave us $2 and said, "Keep up the good work." Thank you, Classy Anti-Fascist. We appreciate that. Keep up your support. We appreciate it, and we will keep delivering the good work for you. For our members, our YouTube members, we have Popcorny, Cricket Cinema gifted 1 membership, Betty Jean, and Mountain Baker Girl. Appreciate all of you. Thank you very much for signing up for that ongoing support. That is truly the stuff that keeps us going. And then our members through our website, which we really appreciate because we get to, Google takes a chunks of the YouTube memberships if that's the way you want to give. Like, I don't want to stop you from doing that, but the YouTube members really make a difference. I appreciate it. Our new website members are Suzanne and Dixie, so thank you both very much. We appreciate you. And again, one more time, if you want to become a member, statuscoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. 16 cents a day goes to keep us in these cities on the ground as we embark on a new reporting trip here in the Twin Cities. Andrew, I do want to give you the opportunity to plug your stuff as well, since you have been so generous here with your time, and I know you want to go eat dinner, and I've just kept us going live here for much longer than I initially discussed. So why don't you go ahead and use this opportunity to pitch yourself?
Well, thank you, JT, again. And, we're going to be doing this until the operation concludes and however long it goes. But, yeah, Andrew Mercado from Mercado Media. You can catch me on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube right now. I'm live on Twitch. We're live on Facebook. So we're on those 3 platforms. You can choose whichever one you want. And, yeah, just support independent journalism. Support Status Coup, that membership. Any YouTube membership you give to independent journalists, I tell you what, we appreciate that because it really does keep us going to the next story because, corporate media gets millions of dollars. They get big paychecks. Big paychecks and bonuses and all types of stuff. And, we're just not there. So supporting independent journalism goes a long way. It continues to keep us at the story. So again, Andrew Mercado from Mercado Media. I can't wait. I'll see you guys out throughout this week. I'm sure I'll be in a video or two in the middle of this reporting because ICE has messed with us already. But we're going to be at a protest tomorrow, and I'm sure this won't be the last you see of me on Status Coup.
No doubt. Thank you all very much. John, any parting words you want to say? No, John says no. All right, so John says I'm hungry. All right, so I'll sign off quickly. So from the backseat of a truck somewhere in Minneapolis, for Status Coup, I am JT Siskowski. Good night.